Hey guys! Tonight we drift into the very cradle of myth where you feel the ground beneath your feet softly pulse as if waking from a long nap. You probably won't survive this revelation unscathed. Gaia literally yawned you awake, and you're about to catch her mid-stretch. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you are and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the misty void before time toes curling into dew that glistens without sunlight. Historians still argue whether Gaia's emergence reflects ancient earth goddess cults or a later poetic invention, but mainstream scholars agree that Greek cosmogony centered on primordial deities by at least the 8th century BCE thanks to Homeric references. The hush of creation reminds you of standing at dawn in a deserted cathedral where every echo becomes a prayer you didn't pray. You can almost hear the faint crackle of something stirring beneath a blanket of chaos. In this primeval moment, Gaia stretches across the universe like the largest, comfiest mattress imaginable. Fringe mythographers whisper that her yawn created the first gentle breezes, an off-the-books detail largely ignored by the pros. You can almost feel those breezes brushing past, whispering for you to settle in and let go. The world's first lullaby wasn't a song at all, but the rhythmic rise and fall of her immense chest, a heartbeat slow enough to lull even mountains toward slumber. You find yourself curled into Gaia's side, peeking at her as she shifts. With every movement, valleys form beneath your fingertips and waterfalls spill into nascent riverbeds. A mainstream historical fact, ancient Greeks often depicted Gaia as the mother of everything worshipped at Delphi well before Apollo claimed the oracle. Yet those renegade lore enthusiasts claim a scribbled papyrus once described Gaia, humming in a growl so low it could shake the underworld. Take that with a grain of mythical salt. As you nestle into a mossy nook on her hip, you notice constellations flickering overhead. Those stars might just be the reflections of her breathing. Or maybe they're scattered fireflies cheered on by her gentle rumble. You wonder if anyone back in archaic Greece actually felt this closeness, or if its poetic license spun long after temple columns crumbled. Historians still argue whether these intimate earth goddess stories were ever meant to be taken literally or served as metaphorical comfort for humanity. Your pulse slows to match Gaia's dawn of breath. You notice a curious detail. Some fringe storytellers insist that those who heard Gaia's first exhalation gain the gift of restful dreams, though mainstream academics quietly dismiss it as metaphor. Nevertheless, you lean in heart open, absorbing that imaginary breeze, and you start to feel your eyelids grow heavy. You're right where you need to be, half awake, half asleep, caught in the gentle cradle of a myth older than memory. You're still tucked into that mossy cradle, and Gaia hasn't shifted much, just enough for a new song to stir in the soil around you. Her breath no longer feels like a mere exhale. It pulses with rhythm, low and round, like the hum your refrigerator makes at 2 a.m. But if that hum were ancient, sacred, and maybe responsible for crafting rainforests. You sit up slowly, brushing moss from your elbows, and listen. Gaia is composing, not with instruments. Of course, she doesn't need lyres or flutes. She has streams, pebbles, hollow, logs, the occasional napping bear. As your ears adjust, you start picking out tones, the soft gurgle of underground springs, the quiet rustle of grass, learning how to sway. One particularly ambitious fern waves at you and then resumes its leaf-rubbing solo. You smirk. Nature's weirdly musical when you slow down enough to notice. Mainstream historians agree that the ancient Greeks personified the world around them, earth, sky, sea, even abstract ideas like memory and strife. Gaia was their grounding point. She didn't need thunderbolts or golden chariots. She just was. Solid, nurturing, always humming something half heard beneath the clamor of human worries. There's a fringe theory rarely mentioned in textbooks that suggests early humans didn't invent lullabies. They remembered them. That somehow buried deep in our animal DNA, we recognize Gaia's melodies because we were rocked to sleep by them before we had language. It's the sort of theory no self-respecting professor will cite aloud, but you can't help wondering. Because lying there now, every vibration feels vaguely familiar, like a song you don't know the words to but somehow hum along with anyway. You slide down a gentle slope that smells of pine and petrichor, arriving at a clearing that seems intentionally designed for listening. No birds, no breeze, just the soil gently crackling. You lie on your side and press an ear to the ground. What you hear isn't music, not exactly. More like slow-motion drum beats, pulses of pressure, soft, seismic lullabies. You catch yourself breathing in time with them. Historians still argue whether Gaia's musical qualities were ever worshipped directly or if the soothing aspects of the earth were later inventions by Roman poets sentimentalizing the wild. Either way, something here feels purposeful. This isn't just nature doing its thing. This is the earth trying to help you rest. A root curls over your shoulder like a mother drawing a blanket up to your chin, leaves rustle in a breeze you never saw coming, like a whispered chorus reminding you that you are part of all this. Not a guest, not an intruder, just another creature Gaia's trying to soothe into silence. Somewhere nearby, a stream begins to bubble a gentle tempo in 3/4 time. You chuckle under your breath. Of course, the planet would prefer a waltz. It's less aggressive than marching bands or techno beats and easier to nap to. The sky dims, not from sunset, but because Gaia closes her eyes again, and when she sleeps, everything gets just a little quieter. No grand finale, no dramatic symbols, just the distant hum of Earth's lullabies looping softly in the back of your mind. And as the moss rises to meet your back, and the soil beneath your fingertips vibrates with slow, sleepy resonance, you feel it, that gentle truth, ancient and unavoidable. Gaia sings so you can sleep. You blink slowly as Gaia shifts her weight again, and the mossy cradle you'd settled into becomes a meadow bathed in silver. The moon hangs overhead like a sleepy eye half-lidded, watching but not judging. The air smells faintly of jasmine and damp earth with a whisper of something sweeter, maybe fig blossom or maybe just the scent of quiet itself. You rub your eyes and sit up. Welcome to the realm of moonlit meadow hymns. You step barefoot through the grass which doesn't bend so much as sigh beneath your weight. Gaia's lullabies here aren't drummed into stone or hummed through roots. No, this time it's the rustle of seed heads brushing against each other, the lazy chirp of crickets who are frankly trying their best to harmonize. A breeze glides through and every blade of grass joins in light, swaying, breathy, and soft as a lullaby spun from silk. Mainstream historical sources place Gaia among the first generation of deities, older than the Olympians, older than Titans. Her myths predate Zeus's thunder and Hera's jealousy, but out here in the moon-soaked quiet, she feels even older than myth. Like someone whose stories were whispered long before alphabets bothered to show up. A lesser-known fact in some fragments found on neglected pottery shards, Gaia is said to have taught Selene, the moon goddess, how to glow without burning. A trick passed down through quiet understanding, not lectures. You imagine the lesson happening right here, moonlight pooling on flowers, the two of them sharing silence that says more than any scroll. You pause near a patch of lavender and crouch low. The stems sway almost imperceptibly, and from between them you hear a peculiar sound, an owl singing, but not hooting. Singing, a deep, melodic croon that pulses from its chest like a heartbeat made of feathers. You freeze listening. It's not a warning or a cry. It's a cradle song, old and careful, meant for ears like yours. Historians still argue whether these aspects of Gaia as a composer of the natural world's ambient rhythms were meant to be literal. Some say they reflect agricultural rituals, others think they were metaphors for emotional grounding. But none of them seem to address what you're feeling right now, this low thrum in your bones, like you're being gently rocked by something massive and maternal. A fringe belief rarely spoken aloud claims that Gaia sang the moon into dreaming, not spinning, not orbiting, dreaming. That's why moonlight always feels like it knows something. Why it lands so softly on your face. Why it never wakes you even when it slips past your curtains. You lay back in the grass, the cool stems cushioning your spine, and look up. The stars twinkle, sure, but it's the moon that does the singing now. Long vowels, no consonants, like the humming of a lullaby without lyrics, just feeling. You wonder idly, sleepily if maybe you're just a blade of grass too, swaying, rooted, singing softly without knowing. And then you stop wondering. Because the meadow hushes itself, the crickets stretch into silence, and the breeze loops back around, wrapping you in the warmth of something wordless. You close your eyes. And Gaia, somewhere beneath the soil, exhales. Your eyes open to a soft rustling, no alarm, no urgency, just the delicate percussion of leaves brushing against each other above you. You've wandered beneath a forest canopy now, where Gaia's lullaby isn't so much sung as conducted. Each branch acts like a baton coaxing sound from the smallest player's dry leaves. Curious squirrels, a breeze that knows when to hush. You don't walk forward so much as drift your shoulders brushing moss-covered trunks that hum with quiet confidence. Here, Gaia's lullabies echo in layers high above birds testing their evening notes in twos and threes, and lower down the creak of limbs in conversation centuries old and unbothered by your presence. There's rhythm here, but not one you can tap your foot to. It's more like breathing, like a language you forgot you knew. Mainstream historians note that in rural parts of ancient Greece, forests were often considered sacred spaces, particularly groves near springs or temples. Gaia's worship wasn't confined to stone altars. Sometimes it took place beneath trees where roots tangled like fingers, interlaced in prayer. Offerings were left in the crooks of trunks, no trumpets, just quiet reverence. The sort of reverence you feel now standing absolutely still while a pine cone drops nearby with all the ceremony of a cymbal crash. A curious scholarly debate lingers about whether Gaia's worship overlapped with that of dryads, tree spirits, who were said to slumber inside bark, waking only when disturbed. Some argue dryads were Gaia's messengers. Others insist they were fragments of Gaia herself split off like whispers so she could multitask. Either way, you step lightly. Every leaf underfoot might be listening. A fringe tradition hardly mentioned but oddly persistent claims Gaia once weaved lullabies directly into the veins of leaves. That, in autumn, when foliage flares into color, it's because the leaves are playing back every lullaby they've ever heard before, finally letting go. That makes you smile, and look up, and exhale. Above you, branches overlap so tightly they mimic stained glass, casting the forest floor in fractured greens and golds. Sunlight flickers through like applause. You reach out and run a hand along bark worn smooth by time, and for a moment, just a moment, it hums beneath your palm. Not a song, not even a tone. Just vibration, soft and sure, like a parent's hand patting a back until sleep comes easy. You press your ear to a nearby trunk. It smells like old rain and something more elusive, maybe sap, maybe memory. And there it is, a subtle knock-knock rhythm, as if Gaia's heartbeat lives on in the trees, knocking just enough to remind you that you're not alone. Historians still argue whether ancient Greek reverence for nature was born of necessity, forests, providing wood and shade, or of actual belief in the forest's sentience. You at this moment have zero doubts. This forest is wide awake and trying very hard to sing you back to sleep. A branch above you dips lower as if offering a seat. You take it, legs swinging gently, and close your eyes. In this lullaby, you are not the audience. You're the chorus. Your breathing joins the sway of branches, the hiss of needles, the click of twigs settling into place. You belong here. You always did. And Gaia, somewhere beneath the soil and above the canopy, knows it. You awaken to the sound of waves, but not crashing ones. These waves arrive like old friends who know how to knock softly, never in a rush. Gaia has led you to the shoreline now, where lullabies are carried not by wind or branches, but by the ocean's endless exhale. You sit in the sand leg stretched forward and feel the tide sneak up to kiss your toes with rhythmic devotion. This is Gaia's oceanic heartbeat, and it's not subtle. It booms, it breathes, it burrows into your ribs until your pulse starts mimicking its pace. The repetition isn't boring, it's reassuring, like hearing someone shuffle in the kitchen long after you've gone to bed. They're still there? The world hasn't ended. You can sleep. A mainstream fact to the ancient Greeks, the sea was both a boundary and a bridge, a path to other lands, but also a place of danger. Gaia, though tied to Earth, was said to be the mother of Pontus, the primordial sea god. So in a way, every wave is her grandchild murmuring sweet nothings to the sand. And tonight, you're eavesdropping on a very old family reunion. There's a fringe belief tucked into one Orphic hymn that Gaia sang to the seas not in Greek or bird call, but in pure rhythm. She used the moon to pace it. That's why waves repeat, why they always repeat. Gaia's lullaby doesn't end. It just loops forever, humming against the edge of a sleep. You lie back in the sand. Tiny pebbles shift beneath you, adjusting themselves politely. The stars above twinkle with exaggerated innocence, pretending not to notice you're about to doze off again. But you stay awake just long enough to notice something strange. The waves aren't exactly random. Every seventh one feels deeper. It reaches farther. It lingers longer. You start counting. 1, 2, 3. And just before you drift again, you catch it, number 7 hums. Historians still argue whether ancient cultures recognized wave patterns as natural music or mere physical consequence. But here tonight, Gaia seems deliberate. Her heartbeat surges in salt and foam. It presses into your skin, rinses your thoughts, leaves only the softest ones behind. A gentle current tugs a piece of driftwood near your foot. You watch it bob, swaying like a cradle. Everything sways out here. The reeds, the kelp beneath the surface. Even the moon reflected in the tide dips and rises, as if being rocked by invisible hands. Another odd detail from a fringe myth. It said Gaia once whispered lullabies into volcanic vents beneath the ocean floor, and those hot murmurs created currents that swirled upward, reaching sleeping sailors and guiding them home. Totally unprovable, but comforting nonetheless. The tide creeps higher, not threatening, just closer. It wants to tuck you in. Sand clings to your ankles like the coziest socks. The air smells like salt, distant rain, and memory. You can't remember what time it is. Maybe that's the point. You close your eyes as the waves continue. The sea, unbothered and unburdened, keeps singing in its low, eternal voice. And somewhere beneath it, Gaia smiles. You wake to the feeling of cool stone beneath your fingertips, rough, steady, and grounded in a way that only mountains ever manage. Gaia has drawn you inland now, far above the ocean's sway, to where the lullaby grows deeper. You're standing on a slope dusted with gravel, and all around you peaks rise like frozen waves. Welcome to the mountain, echo refrain. You pause and listen. Not to birds or breezes this time, but to the way your breath bounces off the cliffs. Say something, even a whisper, and the mountains will send it back, slightly delayed, slightly transformed. It's like talking to a shy version of yourself, a version who prefers to hum in return rather than speak. A mainstream historical fact, the Greeks believed that echoes came from the nymph Echo, cursed by Hera to only repeat the last word she heard. But before that myth settled in, echoes were thought by some to be Gaia's own breath trapped between stone and sky, repeating itself for comfort. And comfort is exactly what this place offers. You wander higher, stepping carefully over slate shards and tufts of stubborn grass. Each footstep sounds like a question, and each echo responds like a lullaby interrupted by a thoughtful pause. Fringe thinkers have long speculated that Gaia once carved out valleys not with water or earthquakes, but with humming. They say she'd press her voice into the ridges and the earth would part in response, forming ravines that still carry her frequency. Wild, sure, but as you lean against a boulder and hum a single note, you swear you hear it come back in harmony. There's no wind at this height, just stillness and sound. You sit down on a flat ledge that juts out into a canyon like the front row of a concert made entirely of rock. And then it begins. A bird calls once, twice, then silent. A few seconds later, the call returns from somewhere far across the gorge, softer and elongated, like the bird was tired of speaking clearly. You smile. Even the wildlife here is sleepy. Historians still argue whether mountain regions were sacred to Gaia or simply admired for their grandeur. Temples were usually built on lower, more fertile ground, but that doesn't mean worship didn't happen up high. Pilgrims likely climbed these paths with questions, only to find that the only answers were echoes, which, if you think about it, is kind of poetic. You stretch out on a sun-warmed slab, hands folded over your chest, and stare up at a sky so blue it looks fake. The mountains don't move. They don't sing, not exactly, but they reflect everything you offer: voice, footstep, sigh. A fringe poem attributed to an unnamed mystic claims that Gaia hides her oldest lullabies in echoes, not the obvious ones, the sneaky ones. The near-silent reverbs you only catch when you're between sleep and waking. Apparently, if you hum just right, the mountain gives you back the missing parts of a song your soul has forgotten. You try, just a note, a low hum, nothing fancy, and in the stillness a response floats back, not identical, not even tonal, but meaningful. Something just under the surface of sound. A memory, maybe. The air grows cooler. Shadows stretch long across the valley. Even the rocks seem to settle in for the night, reclining into their ancient slouches, and the echoes, gentle now, fade further with every repeat, like lullabies trailing off at the edge of a dream. You pull your cloak tighter. You're not cold, not really, just heavy. Sleepy. And Gaia, somewhere beneath all this stone, continues her refrain, low, wordless, steady as mountains themselves. You stir as the sound of trickling water gently pokes at your ears, like someone tapping a xylophone with a single finger just to see if you'll respond. You've descended from the mountains now, guided not by trail or logic, but by the soft insistence of a winding river. It doesn't rush. It doesn't roar. It murmurs. And that's Gaia's intention here. Her lullaby has become liquid. You stand at the edge of a slow, meandering stream that twirls around smooth stones and dips under tangled roots like a ribbon of quiet thought. You crouch to touch it, cold, alive, awake, but not in a way that demands anything from you. This river just is, and its voice is consistent. Shh, shh, shh. Mainstream historians often note how ancient Greek settlements were built near freshwater sources, not just for survival, but for ritual. Springs and rivers were considered sacred, and many were believed to house naiads, nymphs of fresh water, who whispered Gaia's intentions to those who knew how to listen. You pause and wonder, if you hold your breath long enough, could you hear them? There's a narrow sandbar at the bend of the stream, and you step onto it, slowly sinking half an inch with each barefoot press. The ground here is soft, as if it's been kneaded by lullabies for millennia. You lie down, arms spread wide, and close your eyes. The stream continues speaking, flowing past your ears with the practiced rhythm of someone reading an old bedtime story. A lesser-known fringe belief jotted in the margins of a cracked early text suggests Gaia once sang directly into rivers to teach them how to curve, that they were born straight and rigid like nervous children until her voice coaxed them into looseness. You imagine that moment, the first bend, the first surrender, the first river realizing it was allowed to meander. The reeds lining the bank sway gently, their stalks brushing each other in time with the current's breath. A dragonfly hovers nearby, suspended like a comma in the air before drifting off. You think about punctuation now. how Gaia uses silence like ellipses, water like parentheses, crickets like quiet exclamation marks. Historians still argue whether lullabies in ancient Greek culture were considered sacred or merely maternal. Some early texts treat them as spells, others dismiss them as household habit. But here, lying beside the river's hum, you feel no such divide. Magic routine memory, they blur into one. The sun filters through the willow branches overhead, dappling your arms in golden ellipses. You watch a leaf detach and float downstream, caught in the current spinning like a lazy carousel horse. It moves without urgency, without destination. And that's the lesson, maybe. Gaia's lullabies aren't trying to get you anywhere. They're just here to slow you down enough to notice you've already arrived. The river rounds another bend, its whispering voice never louder than your thoughts, but just clear enough to escort them gently away. Worries dissolve, here not drowned, just rerouted. Given another path to take. A frog croaks somewhere upstream and the echo comes back slower, sleepier. You smile at the delay. Even sound is dozing off here. You dip up your fingers into the stream one last time before closing your eyes again. The water hugs your hand like a parent smoothing a child's hair. The current, constant but kind, continues on whispering lullabies that don't need words. And somewhere along its deepest bend, Gaia hums with you. You open your eyes to movement. Not fast, not sharp, just enough to ruffle your hair. The river has faded behind you, and now Gaia welcomes you to a windswept plateau. The air is thinner here, clearer, and every breeze feels intentional. You stand up slowly, letting the wind wrap around your shoulders like a silk shawl. It doesn't push, it invites. This is the lullaby of the wind's gentle serenade. You step into it. The grass here is short and bowed, forever bent from the ceaseless caress of Gaia's breath. It sings across the field in hushes and hush-hushes. No words, just movement, as if the earth herself is shushing your thoughts one breeze at a time. Mainstream historical records often describe wind as the messenger of gods. Zephyrus, Boreas, Notus, all named, all given their moods and seasonal personalities. But before they had names, before myth tried to pin them down, the winds were simply Gaia's exhalations. The first sighs of the earth floating aimlessly across the land, looking for ears to comfort. You kneel near a cluster of reeds which sway in staggered unison. The sound they make is surprisingly rhythmic, a shaky kind of music like flutes played by half-asleep musicians. You lean in and the wind curls through them with a sigh that almost forms a melody. It's not perfect, but it's real. A fringe account found scribbled on the back of a forgotten votive tablet suggests Gaia once taught the wind how to hum lullabies by passing it through hollow bones and dried gourds left in the sun. You chuckle at the thought. Mother Earth sitting in a field like some celestial music teacher guiding the breeze through its first shaky notes. You stand and open your arms wide. The wind moves through your fingers and down your spine, and for a moment you feel weightless, not flying, just lifted, carried gently by a force with no agenda. It brushes your ears, your hairline, your wrists, soft reminders that you're still here, still held. Historians still argue whether ancient peoples believed the wind could carry voices or thoughts. Some texts suggest it was a courier for prayer. Others say it was just weather. But standing here, head tilted into the sky, you feel certain the wind remembers. Every lullaby, every whisper, every secret ever spoken beneath it. The clouds roll slowly overhead, each one shaped like something you almost recognize, a cradle, a sleeping cat, maybe, a hand pressing gently over a child's eyes. You laugh quietly to yourself. Even the sky's trying to get you to close your eyes. A grasshopper hops across your shoe. You don't move. It lingers, then leaps into the breeze, vanishing into the tall grass. The lullaby continues uninterrupted. No applause needed, Gaia doesn't do performances, just practice. Constant, patient, eternal. You lie back again, arms outstretched, and let the wind dance over you. It doesn't try to sing loud or impress, it just moves carefully, tuning every strand of grass into the key of drowsy. And somewhere far above, or maybe far below, Gaia adjusts the wind ever so slightly, just enough to remind you it's okay to rest. The wind fades like a breath. Let go too slowly, and in its place silence blooms. Not empty silence, but a thick, velvety kind, the sort you only find underground. Gaia draws you inward now, guiding your steps into the mouth of a cave nestled behind a curtain of ivy. You duck low your shoulders, brushing cool rock. Welcome to the resonance of rock and cave. The temperature drops just slightly. The air smells like wet stone and long-forgotten fire. You take a few careful steps forward, and even the sound of your footfall feels like an intrusion until it echoes. A soft, round tone that bounces off the walls and returns to you. You stop, breathe, and the echo answers again. Not quite your breath, not quite not. Mainstream archaeology confirms that caves were sacred spaces to early Greeks. Some were used for chthonic rituals, others for shelter, but many were associated with Gaia or her underworld aspect. People carved into their walls left tokens behind. You reach out and run your hand along the surface, slick in some places, crumbly in others. It feels like touching the inside of a memory. A drop of water falls from somewhere high above. It lands on stone with a gentle plink and then echoes as if the cave itself is surprised. You wait. Another drop. Another echo. A rhythm accidental but familiar. Gaia's lullaby here is slower, deeper, not in melody but in space. The lullaby is the room itself. Every curve and crevice shaped to hold sound just long enough to make you feel heard. A fringe tale, likely apocryphal, claims that Gaia formed caves by laughing into the earth, deep belly laughs that cracked open the soil and folded inwards, creating chambers meant not for hiding, but for echoing joy. Far-fetched, absolutely. But there's something comforting about the idea that even the ground has laughed before. You settle on a ledge worn smooth by centuries. There's no light here, but your eyes adjust. The darkness becomes velvet. You can't see the edges anymore, but you feel enclosed, cradled like the earth has folded itself around you for safekeeping. Historians still argue whether cave echoes were used in ritual or simply observed with awe. Some say early priests whispered questions into the dark, hoping the returning echo would answer. Others believe they just sat in silence, comforted by a world that whispered back. You decide to try. Just one word. A sleepy hello. It echoes once, twice, softer each time, as if the cave is tucking it in layer by layer until the word is nothing more than warmth. You lean your head against the wall and close your eyes. The rock is cool, but not unfriendly. A steady hum vibrates behind it. Gaia's heartbeat again, only lower, slower. The kind of beat that slows yours in return. Somewhere deeper inside, you hear a gust of air snake its way through narrow tunnels. It doesn't whistle. It hums. A tone so deep it doesn't land in your ears, it settles in your chest. It vibrates your ribs. It fills you without ever making a sound loud enough to be called a song. And in that vibration, in that perfect non-silence, Gaia's lullaby lives on. She doesn't need words. She has resonance. She has depth. She has stone and shadow and time. And you, half asleep now, have nothing left to do but listen. You emerge slowly from the cave like a yawn stretching into daylight. Your skin warmed instantly by sunbeams that feel too intentional to be accidental. Gaia has brought you back into the open now, to a meadow in full bloom. But something's different this time. The air is perfumed, thick with petals and pollen and the soft invitation of floral-scented chants. You kneel in a bed of wildflowers, lavender, thyme, marjoram, and 100 others your nose knows better than your mind. Every breath is a chorus, a lullaby made not of sound, but of scent. Gaia's melody here doesn't hum in your ears. It curls up your nose, winds through your thoughts, and settles behind your eyes like a sigh that hasn't been exhaled yet. Mainstream historical records speak to the ancient Greeks' reverence for flowers used in ceremonies, funerals, weddings, and offerings. Gaia's sacred groves often bloomed with herbs thought to hold healing power. But out here, there's no temple, no altar, just a field orchestrated by someone who knew the secret of scent. It lingers even after the song has stopped. A bee drones past your face, lazy looping and drunk on nectar. You watch it dip into a white blossom and vanish with a muffled buzz, the flower bobbing slightly in applause. Another joins it, and another, until the field buzzes like a soft tambourine just out of rhythm. You lie back, arms open wide, and let it wash over you. A fringe myth dug up from a nearly illegible fragment in a ruined herbarium claims that Gaia once whispered directly into the petals of poppies, teaching them how to induce sleep, not with force but with fragrance. That's why it says, even today, a warm room filled with dried lavender can cradle your mind like a lullaby you forgot you knew. Historians still argue whether the Greeks truly believed certain scents held divine properties, or if that was poetic language folded into daily routine. But you know one thing lying here wrapped in air that smells like memory and comfort. Your limbs feel heavier, not exhausted, just ready. You roll onto your side and find a patch of chamomile crushed beneath your shoulder. It releases its scent like a sigh, subtle, bittersweet, soothing. The kind of smell that doesn't demand anything of you. It just is. A lullaby in a new language. The field bends with the wind, not in waves but in murmurs. Every sway of the tall grasses feels intentional. Each bloom nods gently. If the cave was resonance and the river was rhythm, this field is harmony. A quiet chord of color and scent and sunlight that wraps around your chest and pulls softly inward. You take one more breath, slow, deep, and hold it, trying to memorize the way the air tastes. There's honey in it, something like cinnamon, a whisper of rosemary. If you could bottle this air, you'd never need music again. A butterfly lands on your ankle, rests there for a moment, then floats upward, zigzagging lazily toward the sun. You don't follow it with your eyes. You don't need to. You're already drifting. And Gaia, from the root to the petal to the pollen on the breeze, continues her lullaby, fragrant, invisible, and utterly complete. The flowers grow quieter behind you as you step into a clearing edged with tall grasses that shimmer in waves. The air here feels different, cooler, shifting. You're not in one season anymore, but in all of them at once. This is where Gaia's lullaby adapts. Welcome to the domain of seasonal breathing patterns. You walk slowly, the ground beneath your feet subtly changing. In one step, it's soft with autumn leaves. In the next, dew clings to blades of new spring grass. A few more paces, and the wind carries summer warmth. Turn your head, and a winter hush leans into your ear. Gaia is breathing through the seasons now, and every inhale or exhale shapes the world's rhythm around you. Mainstream Greek mythology kept track of seasons through gods like Demeter and Persephone, whose tale of descent and return explained the cycles of growth and dormancy. But Gaia's breath came before that. Before stories, before rituals, before memory. Her seasons weren't metaphors. They were music. Crescendos of color, diminuendos of chill, interludes of rain and rest. You settle onto a patch of sun-dappled earth, and it's impossible to tell what season it truly is. A red leaf flutters by. Somewhere nearby, a crocus blooms. Your skin tingles with warm air that's quickly cooled by the scent of snow you can't see. It's not confusing, it's comforting. Like hearing your grandmother hum the same lullaby 3 different ways over the years. Still her, just evolving. A fringe belief scribbled into the corner of a weathered farmer's calendar insists that Gaia exhaled at solstices and inhaled at equinoxes. That the very idea of a year came from the pacing of her breath, and if you stood very still during twilight, you could feel the air pulse differently on those days. You test it, you pause. And maybe it's your imagination, or maybe not, but the wind does seem to pause just for a heartbeat, and when it returns, it brings the scent of rain on dust. A perfect balance. Historians still argue whether seasonal rituals were designed purely for agriculture or if they were extensions of deeper beliefs in Gaia's living presence. You suspect it was both. When the ground cracks from drought or hardens under frost, it's hard not to imagine something larger at work, something breathing underneath it all. You watch as a patchet of clover tilts toward the sun. A second later, the light dims and a few snowflakes tumble past, not enough to chill you, just a gentle reminder. Everything changes. That's the lullaby here. Not constancy, but rhythm. A pattern your body remembers even when your mind forgets. In this moment, it doesn't matter if it's spring or fall. Gaia isn't choosing, she's blending. She's showing you that every season holds rest in its own way. Autumn's falling hush, winter's stillness, spring's sigh of renewal, summer's drawn-out dusk. You lie down and let the changes happen around you. The grass thickens, thins. A bird calls once, then not again. Somewhere frost kisses a stone. Somewhere else a fruit ripens on the branch. The transitions are seamless, soft, measured. Gaia's lullaby doesn't ask you to pick a moment. It invites you to rest between them. And so you do. You blink up at the sky and the colors have shifted. The air feels thinner now, tinged with something vast. Gaia is still with you, but she's quieter, more distant. Her lullaby lifts upward, tethered to the cosmos. You've arrived at the lull of the stars, the place where Gaia's song stretches past clouds and peaks humming through the black silk canopy of night. This is her celestial star lull. You lie back on a blanket of dry moss arms resting limply at your sides, and let your gaze wander through constellations that shimmer like tiny, thoughtful pauses. The stars don't flicker here. They pulse, like heartbeats, like breaths, as if each one is part of Gaia's larger rhythm, blinking in time with a lullaby meant not for ears, but for the soul. Mainstream astronomy tells us the Greeks saw figures in the stars Orion, Cassiopeia, Andromeda. Heroes and gods locked in luminous poses. But in older earthbound traditions, Gaia didn't name the stars. She cradled them. She didn't need to assign myths. The stars were her children, or maybe her freckles, just marks left behind from when she stretched her arms too far and brushed the edge of the night. A curious fringe theory, half-whispered by mystics and meteor watchers, says Gaia once sang directly into the sky, and that's why starlight travels in waves. Not just light waves, sound waves. They move in lullaby tempo even if we can't hear them anymore. You roll onto your side and imagine at a time when stars hummed audibly. When you could fall asleep to a twinkle that wasn't metaphor, but literal music. And maybe, just maybe, some small part of your body remembers that tune. Your eyelids certainly do. They're heavier now, star-weighted. Historians still argue whether celestial motion inspired musical modes in ancient Greek theory or if that's retrospective poetry. But you can't deny the cadence here. The sky has tempo. It doesn't rush. It doesn't stall. It flows. Above you, a shooting star streaks past without fanfare. No wish needed. It feels like punctuation. A closing note. You smile and exhale, and the cool night air rushes in like a sigh already in progress. Somewhere far off, an owl calls. Not the same owl from the moonlit meadows, but a descendant maybe. One who learned its lullaby from the glimmer above. Its echo doesn't return. The stars don't echo. They absorb. They hold. They listen better than anyone. You close your eyes and behind your lids, you still see light. Not bright, not harsh, just soft pulses. Gaia's lullaby has entered you now, not through soil or root, but through the quiet certainty that the universe is still singing. And as your breathing slows to match the stars, you realize this lullaby has no beginning, no end, just distant, twinkling assurance that you're part of something enormous and serenely small. Gaia doesn't stop at the ground. She sings across galaxies. You wake not with a start, but with a sigh. The kind of sigh that escapes when sleep has done its job and left you softer. The stars are behind you now, not gone, just quieter. Gaia's lullaby has changed once again, this time drawing you closer to others, closer to yourself. You're in a quiet glade where torches flicker and tents rest, and nearby you see the first of them, people. This is where mortals begin to dream. You've reached the realm of human sleep, the mortal dream invitation. You step gently between resting bodies wrapped in furs and linen, their faces calm, breath steady. Some lie beneath the open sky, others curl beside fires. None stir. Gaia's lullaby doesn't need to be loud here. These humans already know the tune. They've learned to surrender to it. Mainstream accounts tell us that lullabies were sung across Greek households for centuries. Melodies passed down, matrilineally meant to calm babies and perhaps even the gods. Ancient terracotta figures often depict mothers rocking infants in arms, mouths frozen mid-song. And yet no written lullabies from those times survive. Not one. As if their power lived only in voice, never ink. You pause near a group of children nestled in a woven basket, tiny fingers twitching in sleep. One of them smiles just faintly. A dream flickers across their brow like a passing cloud. You don't need to ask what it is, you already know. Gaia gave it to them. A fringe legend barely footnoted in academic texts tells of a hidden grove where Gaia once whispered directly into human minds, skipping language entirely. These whispers became dreams, and dreams in turn became lullabies sung back to the earth. A loop of comfort passed between mother and child, deity and mortal. You sit by the fire, now alone but not lonely. A shepherd dozes nearby, his crook resting across his chest. The embers crackle in soft rhythm, not random, not rushed, just steady. You watch the glow shift in waves like a heartbeat in ash form. Historians still argue whether dreams were thought to be divine gifts or psychological byproducts in ancient Greece. Some believed they came from Hypnos and Morpheus. Others whispered that Gaia sent them when sleep alone wasn't enough, that she filled minds with visions to help humans remember how to rest. You stretch your legs toward the fire warmth, kissing your ankles. Across the glade, a woman stirs and pulls a blanket higher over her shoulder. A soft murmur escapes her lips. It sounds like the end of a lullaby, just the last line. You don't recognize the language, but you know the feeling. You hum it back under your breath, and for a moment she smiles in her sleep. You lie back, joining the circle of rest. No one speaks, no one moves. You inhale the scent of smoke, wool, and something else, something older. The breath of earth, the trace of Gaia's lullaby still in the air. This is not a song you learn. It's one you remember. And tonight, everyone here remembers it perfectly. You stir once more, but now the atmosphere has shifted. Not the melody, not the rhythm, but the tension behind it. It's subtle, like a skipped beat in a familiar tune. You're standing alone now, outside the sleeping glade, on the edge of a winding path that leads into shadow. Gaia's lullaby lingers, but something about it feels debated, questioned. You've arrived at the place where curiosity stirs beneath comfort, where scholars have long gathered scrolls in hand to wonder, did Gaia truly sing? You're now among the scholarly whisper debates. You walk slowly along a colonnade of worn marble. Cracks run through the stone like ancient wrinkles. Around you are voices not loud, not recent, but preserved. They echo in the dust, in the curled leaves of forgotten papyri, in the margins of temple inscriptions. Each one poses the same question. Were Gaia's lullabies real? Mainstream historians are divided. Some see her as symbolic and agricultural metaphor for cycles of growth and decay. Others insist she was actively worshipped as a living maternal force with offerings and oaths sworn directly to her soil. The archaeological evidence is fragmentary, as history often is. But certain sanctuaries like the deep caverns at Delphi and the sacred groves near Aegae hint at something older, deeper than the Olympians ever touched. You sit on a weathered bench beside a crumbled column and pick up a fallen olive leaf. It crackles in your palm. A fringe theory not widely accepted but endlessly whispered claims Gaia's lullabies still echo faintly in certain frequencies buried in the Earth's electromagnetic field. That those with unusually tuned hearing can detect a low hum, especially during solstices. Skeptics call it pseudoscience. Believers call it music. You lean your ear toward the Earth just in case. Nothing. And yet, your breath slows anyway. Some scholars argue that the idea of Gaia singing is pure poetic embellishment, that the ancients like us simply needed comfort and projected sound into silence. Others contend that myth is memory, and memory leaves residue, that the stories came from somewhere not fiction but feeling. You rise and pass a mosaic half buried in the dirt. It shows a woman reclining, vines tangled through her hair, a spiral of stars curling from her lips. You smile. The artist believed, at least for a moment. Historians still argue whether lullabies themselves held sacred significance in the ancient world or were just domestic rituals, the domain of women, unworthy of grand inscriptions. And yet here you are thousands of years later still trying to follow the tune. A breeze stirs the olive trees and the sound is familiar again. Rustle, rustle, sway, sigh. You close your eyes. It doesn't matter if it was scientifically recorded or ritually confirmed. The lullaby is real because you feel it. Gaia's song lives on in the rhythm of rain, in the hush of dusk, in the breath between thoughts. You stand again, the path stretching before you. The scholars are still behind you, mumbling gently, asking questions that may never be answered. But Gaia doesn't require consensus. She just keeps singing. The stone path tapers into soil again, warm and pliant beneath your feet. You've left the debates behind their murmurs, dissolving into the deeper hush ahead. Gaia waits for you one final time, not in forest or meadow or cave, but in the quiet space where stories end and silence begins. This is the return to primordial silence. The lullaby is almost finished now, but not quite. She's slowing it down for you, stretching every note into forever. You find yourself in a low bowl of earth, wrapped in woven grass and shaded by a single wide oak. Its trunk is gnarled like a grandmother's fingers, and its leaves barely rustle as if even the tree knows to whisper. You sit beneath it, not because you're tired, though you are, but because you feel invited. The earth is soft. The shadows curl around you like blankets. Gaia doesn't speak. She never did. She sang, sure, but without lyrics, without instruction. You realize that now. This whole time she was never trying to teach you anything. Just soothe. Just steady. Like a heartbeat you could lean your head against. Mainstream sources agree that Gaia in her oldest forms was less of a personality and more of a presence, a background divinity that shaped existence quietly while louder gods bickered and blazed across myth. She was the lull before the storm. And the hush after, the moment after the shout where your ears ring and your breath comes slow. A fringe idea found scratched into the base of a worn terracotta votive claims that Gaia's truest power was silence, not as absence, but as invitation. That she created a pause large enough for sleep to walk in. You lie flat palms against the earth and you feel it. The breath of soil, the gentle hum of roots just below the slow exhale of a planet tucking in its child. The lullaby has faded to a murmur, then to a breath, then to nothing but rhythm. Historians still argue whether Gaia was ever truly worshipped as an individual force once the Olympians took center stage. But none of that matters now, because you are here, and she is here, and neither of you need names. Above the branches shift once, letting one final beam of light rest across your closed eyes. It lingers for a moment, then it too fades. There is no final chord, no grand farewell, just stillness. And in that stillness, peace. You stay lying there a while longer, the hush wrapped around you like the warm weight of a favorite blanket. Your breath slows even more soft and shallow, syncing with the gentle pulse of something much older than you, older than stories, older than sleep itself. Gaia doesn't sing anymore. She doesn't have to. Her lullaby is complete. The world around you has quieted to a hush that isn't empty. It's full of time, of memory, of care. Every sound has settled into stillness, every breeze into rest. And as your mind drifts in that soft in-between space, neither dreaming nor waking, you feel held, cradled by something wide and wordless. You let go of thought, of questions, of shape. There is only the breath. In, out, soft, steady, safe. No need to move, no need to speak. The lullaby now plays in your bones, in your heartbeat, in the gentle way your fingertips rest against the earth. The story is over, but the comfort remains. A gentle reminder that the world doesn't always need to be understood, only felt. So stay right here. Let the quiet hold you. Let the hush become home. Sleep if you haven't already. And if you have, some sweet dreams.